Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Mordy and Glory video. Today we are going to be doing a unit review of the Rogal Dorn, the new main battle tank for the Imperial Guard. In case you've not seen one of these videos before, how it works is firstly, I do an overview of the unit, going through its stats, its war gear and its abilities, everything that's on its datasheet. After that, we do a deep dive. We start analysing the advantages and disadvantages of the unit and looking at some ways you can use it on the battlefield. Finally, we wrap it up with a score out of 10 with a few closing thoughts. But without further ado, let's crack on with today's video and have a look at the latest tank to roll out of the Manufactorum. The Rogal Dorn is a new heavy support option for the Imperial Guard. You'll find it in the same place as your Leman Russ battle tanks, your heavy weapon squads, and your various artillery pieces. It is a single model unit and a new main battle tank for the Imperial Guard. In terms of its size and power, it sits somewhere in between the Leman Russ and a Baneblade. Going over its stat line, the Rogal Dorn has a movement of 10, a weapon skill of 6+, a ballistic skill of 4+, a strength of 8, a mighty toughness 9, 17 wounds, 6 attacks, leadership 8, and a 2+ save. It has a large variety of weapon systems, but as standard it comes equipped with a castigator Gatling cannon, a single heavy stubber, and twin battle cannon. The twin battle cannon has a 72-inch range. It fires heavy 2d6 shots. It is strength 8, AP-3, and a flat 3 damage. It does have the blast rule, and it also is a turret weapon, which gives it +1 to hit. The castigator Gatling cannon has a 24-inch range, is heavy 12, strength 5, AP-1, and 1 damage each. And of course, the venerable old heavy stubber has a 36-inch range, heavy 3, strength 4, AP nothing, and damage 1. It is a nice little bit of supplementary firepower for your tank. You can swap out your twin battle cannon for an oppressor cannon and coaxial autocannon. The oppressor cannon has a 90-inch range, is heavy d6 plus 3 shots, strength 10, AP-3, a flat 4 damage, blast with turret weapon. The coaxial autocannon is a 48-inch range, heavy 2, strength 7, AP-1, damage 2, and it also benefits from the turret weapon, which means both the oppressor and the autocannon will get +1 to hit, which is very nice. You can also swap out the castigator Gatling cannon for a pulverizer cannon. This also has a 24-inch range like the castigator, but it is heavy d6 shots, strength 8, AP-2, 3 damage, and blast. The castigator Gatling cannon is a fantastic anti-infantry choice, but if you're looking for a little bit more boom boom on your tank, you may want to consider the pulverizer cannon. But the fun doesn't stop there, because you can strap loads of extra guns onto your Rogal Dorn as well. Firstly, you can give it an extra 2 melter guns or 2 additional heavy stubbers. Like the Leman Russ, the Rogal Dorn also gains access to sponson weapons. These are the extra guns that you see on the side of the tank. Now, it can either take 2 heavy bolters or it can take 2 multi-melters. The final upgrade for the Rogal Dorn is armoured tracks, and this makes your Dorn a little bit more durable against small arms and light firepower. As for datasheet abilities, the Rogal Dorn does not have very many special rules. At the end of the day, it's a tank. The only one you need to be aware of is the fact that it does have a big explosion. Most guard vehicles, when they blow up, do D3 mortal wounds to all units within 6 inches. When the Rogal Dorn decides to pop its turret sky high, it does D6 mortal wounds, which means it can do a lot of damage if it blows up in your lines. So that covers the basic stats, war gear, and abilities of the Rogal Dorn, but now let's get on with that deep dive. So straight off the bat, let's ask ourselves the question, what is the purpose of this unit? And it is a main battle tank, and that means it is a fire support unit. It is best served blasting your enemy from afar with as many big guns as it can bring to bear. It might look like a chunky boy that can run over things in combat, but trust me, it does not have the stat lines that make it any good at fighting people in melee. Keep it back and keep it firing. One of the most unique things about the Rogal Dorn is how durable it is. Leman Russes were already pretty tough. The Rogal Dorn takes that to a whole new level with a basic 2+ save and toughness 9 with 17 wounds. All but the most dedicated heavy anti-armor is going to bounce off this beast. Most dedicated anti-tank weapons in this game cap out at strength 8. In fact, the most common anti-tank gun is the melter or the melter equivalent. Now, normally strength 8 is more than enough. Any heavy infantry you're going to be wounding on 2s, and any sort of light and medium armor you'll be comfortably wounding on 3s, and they probably won't get a save. Even if you do come across a nice bit of heavy armor, strength 8 normally equals toughness 8, and therefore you still have a 50-50 chance of getting that melter shot through. But toughness 9 totally changes the game, because it means the most common types of anti-tank guns out there are only wounding you on 5s. And that means more often than not, they're just going to bounce straight off. And even if they do somehow get a wound through, because you've got a 2+ save, you still actually get a 6-up when you take into account the AP of the melter. So there's still a 16% chance that even if they do get past the hard part, you still got a chance of just stopping that damage. It really is a very durable profile. Small side note here, it's very clever that the Rogal Dorn only has 17 wounds. 17 wounds is still loads more than most other vehicles in your guard motor pool. But what's important is it's still less than 18. Now you might be saying to me, but Mordian Glory, that's basic mathematics. Surely 18 wounds would be better because 18 is more than 17. No. By having less than 18 wounds, it means the Rogal Dorn, despite the fact it is a big boy, can still benefit from obscuring terrain, unlike super heavies and other models which have got 18 or more wounds. Another standout feature of this new war machine is how many guns it can take. It really does have a lot of DACA. If you take your Dorn with the oppressor cannon, the auto cannon, the 3 stubbers, the castigator, and also the heavy bolters, you're looking at a vehicle that is going to be putting out 30+ shots a turn on average, and it's going to have 8 different weapon systems. That is a hell of a lot of firepower to come from a single model. The more traditional Leman Russ can get about 5 weapon systems max if you include a stubber that you strap to the top of it. So when you put these two vehicles side by side, the additional firepower output that you're getting from the Dorn is noticeable. Now, I know some people out there are going to be worried that the Rogal Dorn is going to supplant the Leman Russ, and I don't think that's the case at all, because the Russ still has a few tricks up its sleeve that the Rogal Dorn does not. Firstly, it gains access to a bit more extra equipment. You can take a Dozer Blade and a Hunter-Killer Missile on your Leman Russ. The Dozer Blade allows you to ignore any movement modifiers to your Leman Russ. That is potentially very helpful in a game system which is increasingly adding more and more terrain types into the battlefield. The Hunter-Killer Missile is a one-shot weapon that allows you to spike some damage with some extra anti-tank. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, neither of those upgrades are in any way mandatory for the Leman Russ, and most players will leave them at home. But what is nice about them is it does give the Russ that little bit more tactical flexibility and future-proofs it slightly more. We don't know how the game might change in additions later on. It may be that Hunter-Killer Missiles get to fire more than once. It may be that Dozer Blades become absolutely essential for navigating all of the rubble and ruin in the 40k universe. The Rogal Dorn does not have those options, and as far as we can see from the kit, will never have those options. So the Leman Russ is a little bit more future-proof, like I said. I appreciate that as a little bit wishy-washy and slightly an intangible bonus that the Russ has over the Rogal Dorn. But there is another thing that the Russ has, which is greater weapon variety. The Rogal Dorn might have loads of guns, but they're all pretty much the same. They're either stubbers or bolters or some kind of melter weapon. That's it. They're either chucking out bullets or they're chucking out close range anti-tank. The Leman Russ, on the other hand, can take a las cannon. The Rogal Dorn cannot. The Leman Russ can take heavy flamers on the side. The Rogal Dorn can't. Leman Russ gains access to plasma cannons, which are a fantastic long-range extra bit of punch for your vehicle. Rogal Dorn cannot do that. In fact, the Leman Russ also gets the multi-melters that the Rogal Dorn has, and it has access to the heavy bolters. So I feel like the Rogal Dorn is great, and it has a lot of DACA, but it's kind of monotone. Whereas the Leman Russ, well, there is a Russ for every season and for every occasion, and you can really customize them and make them be adaptable for any situation you're going to encounter. I know this isn't a Leman Russ versus Rogal Dorn video, but these are two main battle tanks. They are fulfilling a very similar role on the battlefield, and inevitably, comparisons are going to be drawn between the two. So it's important to know what the advantages and disadvantages of each one are against each other. Now, forgetting about the Russ for a moment and just focusing on the Dorn, it does have another important disadvantage to be aware of, which is it is a big boy. Now, I know many of you are going to be saying, Morty and Glory, we love the fact it's a big chonky tonk. Yes, it will be grinding over our opponents. It will be smashing through everything. We're having a great time. And yet, it does look imposing on the battlefield. It's very aesthetically pleasing. Big tonk equals great tonk. I get it, guys. But the problem with the big tonk is that it's got a bit of extra chonk. And that means that when you're navigating round the competitive battlefields, which often have a crap load of terrain, you may find it difficult to maneuver your Rogal Dorn around the place. Like the Baneblade, you may find that the Rogal Dorn struggles to get out of its deployment zone, and if it can, it may have to go down one or two limited avenues of approach. This means that your opponent could potentially avoid its significant firepower or limit the number of targets that you're able to see with it. Its bigger size may also limit its ability to avoid enemy line of sight outside of obscuring terrain. But don't worry, before everyone thinks, bloody hell, this Rogal Dorn is terrible, there is a simple way around both of these problems, the maneuverability and also the line of sight issue, which is put it in strategic reserve and outflank it up the board turn 2. I guarantee no enemy out there is going to look forward to a Rogal Dorn appearing on their flank, blasting into them with all of its guns. Now, we have covered several advantages and disadvantages at this point, but there is another thing I want to mention, which is neither a good thing or a bad thing. It's just something you're going to want to be aware of if you're thinking of adding a Dorn into your list, and that is its points cost, because it is quite a pricey main battle tank. It's not as expensive as a Baneblade, which will soak up 25% of your army points in a standard 2k game, but it is coming in at a standard points cost of 250, and that is before you've added on any extras. Once you take into account the fact that you probably want to give this thing a couple of stubbers or melt guns, maybe slap on some heavy bolter rounds on there as well, you are looking at a vehicle that's going to come in at an average of about 275 points. For a lot of guard players, that is quite an eye-watering price to pay for a single model, but I would argue that the Rogal Dorn is worth it, because despite the fact that I have been quite harsh on this model during the review, talking about its lack of weapon variety and it might have some maneuverability issues, I think the Rogal Dorn is a fantastic unit because it really does have just unprecedented durability for its price point, and the amount of firepower it can put out really is not to be sniffed at. The fact that the Oppressor Cannon, which is probably your go-to main weapon on this vehicle, has a flat damage of 4 is very spicy. I mean, I fired my Rogal Dorn at a Hecaton land fortress in a recent battle report, and in a single volley, I cut that thing in half. And if my opponent had not used one of his character abilities to turn one of the failed saves into a pass, and also use a CP reroll, my Rogal Dorn would have absolutely destroyed that Hecaton in a single blast. In fact, whilst we're on the topic of the Rogal Dorn's offensive output, there is a recommended loadout that I have for this tank. It's where you take the Oppressor Cannon and the Auto Cannon, and then you take all the heavy stubbers and heavy bolters and the Castigator Gatling Cannon. I really like this loadout for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's got long range firepower, and secondly, it's very reliable. What did I say at the beginning of this video? I said that the Rogal Dorn was a main battle tank. Its primary purpose is to blast your enemies from far away. Well, if you're sticking a bunch of melter guns on it, it's not able to do its job from far away. It's got to get up close and personal. And if you're putting this thing up close and personal, there's a chance that it's going to get tagged in combat where it does not want to be. Those melter guns have only got a 12-inch range. So whilst it might seem insane that I am picking a stubber over a melter gun, it really does make sense. Also, those melter guns have got really random number of damage, and the pulverizer can has a random number of shots. You just don't know what the damage output of your vehicle is going to be. But if you take stubbers, and you take heavy bolters, and you take castigated Gatling cannons, all of them have got a fixed number of shots, and all of them have got a fixed damage, and you know what you can expect from those guns. Lastly, as I pointed out, if you take the oppressor battle cannon, you have more than enough big boom boom on this tank. What this tank needs is the ability to shred through hordes, because the oppressor cannon does not quite have that volume of fire to make it a good horde killer. If you take into account that you will have an average of 7 shots from that oppressor cannon, but then you add up all of the small arms on this vehicle, you've got the 2 autocannon shots, the 6 heavy bolter shots, the 12 castigated, that's 20 shots right there. And then you've got the 3 heavy stubbers as well. You're looking at 29 anti-horde shots from this vehicle, the vast majority of which are AP-1. This means not only can you deal with hard targets with your oppressor cannon, but you can also deal with those hordes with all of your supplementary firepower. That's why I like that loadout, and I call it the Dakar Dorn. But that covers why I think the Dorn is fantastic from an offensive output point of view. I also think it's great because it synergizes really well with other things in your army and is often a more efficient use of stratagems and tank aces. What I mean by this is, for example, if you decide to upgrade one of your tanks with a tank ace, it costs the same amount of points to upgrade a Leman Russ as it does a Rogal Dorn. Now, the Leman Russ is going to have a main weapon, and it's probably going to have a whole weapon and a couple of sponsors. In total, it's probably going to have about 4 different weapons on it. Your Rogal Dorn is probably going to be going into battle, if you take it with my recommended loadout, with 8 weapon systems. So that tank ace is affecting double the amount of guns for the same price point. This mostly holds true for your stratagems as well. For example, if you are taking Born Soldiers and you want to increase the damage output of one of your vehicles using the Ingrained Precision stratagem, you will be affecting double the amount of guns if you use it on a Rogal Dorn over a Leman Russ. Likewise, if you've got a Leman Russ that is on only a couple of wounds on its bottom bracket, and you've got a Rogal Dorn which is also really badly damaged, you are probably better off using that Relentless stratagem to get the Dorn back on its full profile than the Leman Russ, because the Dorn has more firepower. Likewise, if you're looking to protect your vehicles, if you use smoke launchers on a Leman Russ, it'll cost 1 command point, but it also only costs 1 command point to do it on a Rogal Dorn. And if you use it on the Rogal Dorn, it is much more likely to survive because it has more wounds, it has a higher toughness. If you use smoke screen on Leman Russ, there's still a chance that it's going to end up dying because the enemy hit it with something that's pretty strong and it's only got 12, 13 wounds. But the Rogal Dorn with smokescreen is a very difficult brick of armor to shift. And these general principles about getting more bang for your buck and being a little bit more efficient translate through when we're talking about unit synergies. For example, Regimental Engineer can hand out a 5+ invulnerable save each turn. Why would you not put that 5 up on your Rogal Dorn when you might only have 1 Dorn in your army, but you have 3 or 4 Russes next to it? Or maybe you're deciding to be Billy Big Bollocks and take the Lord Solar, and you're going to be taking advantage of the fact that he can give out full rerolls to hit to a battle tank. Now, the Rogal Dorn is a battle tank, and so is the Russ. If you put the full rerolls to hit on the Dorn, you are getting way more for your money than if you put it on the Leman Russ. In fact, if you're interested in seeing some other ways that you can really supercharge your Rogal Dorn, then make sure you check out the link in the end screen of this video. I recently did an episode where I talked about how you can make the Dorn absolutely filthy on the tabletop, and I go into an in-depth analysis of all of the ways that you can have this bad boy really lay down the hurt on your opponent. But that covers all the advantages and disadvantages of this tank and how you might use it on the battlefield. But now let's take a look at its final score. I give the Rogal Dorn a solid 8.5 out of 10. It is certainly Mordian approved. I've been using one in my recent battles and have been loving it. It is a great addition to the guard motor pool. Most lists will benefit from including 1 to 2 Rogal Dorns to support their traditional Leman Russ fleet. I don't think that the Rogal Dorn will supplant the Russ entirely. I think at the end of the day, it is a little bit pricey, and if you're looking to include a good amount of armor saturation in your force, then 2 or 3 Rogal Dorns probably won't cut it. You're still going to need those Russes to make up the numbers and give you that overwhelming heavy armor advantage. But what do you guys think? Are you a fan of the Rogal Dorn, or do you think that you're going to stick to your traditional Leman Russes? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've enjoyed today's video, then make sure you smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. If you found this episode particularly helpful, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. One of the biggest perks you get for being a channel member or Patreon is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server. This is an online community with over 900 active members, a lot of which are very experienced tournament players, and it is a fantastic resource to draw upon. We're always talking about tactics, army lists, also some hobbying and painting, and we've even got a pretty spicy meme section as well. If that sounds like a great resource or a ton of fun, then please consider becoming a channel member or Patreon supporter. And I just want to take a moment now to say a big thank you to our latest channel members. So thank you to Double D, Gredzagors Bogle, Des Nation, Sergeant Dragonfire, Lord Oman, Red Morrison, Jason Wayland, Stephen Johnston, This is JR, and Danza. Thank you guys for doing your part. Thank you for becoming channel members. I also want to do a shout out to the latest Patreons too. So big thank you to Patrick, Mike, Byron, Snake Eyes, Dustin, Joachim de Graaf, and Flying Pancake. Thank you guys for your ongoing Patreon support. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreon supporters. These are the War Masters, the people that have really gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big thank you to Alan Blunt III, Bonbon Vert, Phil French, Ross Miller, Swordfish Trombone, Alex Dengal, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, Tom Sutton, and August Varney. Thank you guys for your very generous support. It truly makes a massive difference. I hope you've all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.